Jada Pinkett Smith. What is her hold over Will Smith? Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor, and I'm going to explain to you why Jada Pinkett Smith has such a grip on Will Smith. What do you think is the basis of her hold over him? Maybe she's great at getting jiggy with it, and he gets his rocks off on a repeated basis. Perhaps she's a particularly noisy and enthusiastic crescendoer. Maybe she's the one that has written his hits, and that actually he's terrified that she's going to expose him as somebody who can't hold a note, can't rap, and can't dance. Then again, maybe she's got the photographs of him doing something terrible, dark and compromising that she can hold against him. Or maybe it's just a simple case that she keeps his balls under her pillow. Well, whatever you might think it is, I'm going to explain to you what actually is the basis of her hold over him. Before I do so, I'm going to be revealing certain information about what they are. And if you haven't yet had the opportunity to listen to my excellent series, Jada Pinkett Smith, What Is She? Parts 1 through 6, and Will Smith, What Is He? Parts 1 through 10, you might want to pause this video and go and listen to those so that you don't experience the spoiler. With that stated, let's proceed. The nature of their relationship is a symbiotic one. She gains things from it, he gains things from it. Now you might say, well, of course, HG, that happens in any relationship. But what they gain from it will probably not be something that you necessarily know. Seasoned listeners, of course, will be already understanding part of the reason of what they obtain. Those of you who are newer to my work, you're about to be enlightened as to what it is that truly they obtain from each other, and why she is able to assert such a hold over him. First of all, she is a narcissist. I have explained in considerable detail in the series, Jada Pinkett Smith, What Is She? The basis of that. He is an empath. Again, following the evidence, I've explained in considerable detail why that is in the series, Will Smith, What Is He? Starting with her, what does that mean with regard to the hold that she has over him? Well, she unconsciously pursues the prime aims. She must control everybody that comes on her radar. She must draw fuel from some of them. She must draw character traits from some of them, and she must draw residual benefits from them. If you'd like to understand more about the prime aims, just listen to my video of that name. She seeks those things at various points during the day. She will seek those things every single day in varying amounts and on varying occasions. She does so unconsciously. She does not sit there and think, oh, I have to control this person, I need to draw fuel from that person, I need to gain some character traits from him over there. Instead, her narcissism operates like a background app, causing her to be compelled to act in a particular way. Will Smith is what is known as her intimate partner primary source, meaning he is the chief provider of those prime aims, making him hugely important. And therefore, it's necessary for her to ensure that he's brought under and kept under control at all times, and that she keeps a hold of him. With a less important part of her fuel matrix, a tertiary source, she can pop that on the shelf, disengage from it, have nothing to do with it ever again. So, for example, a complete stranger that she interacts with, she says hello, smiles at them, and then moves on and has nothing more to do with them. She asserted control over them by being pleasant towards them, feigning cognitive empathy. She drew fuel from their response. She didn't bother getting any character traits, and the residual benefit might have been something that assists with the maintenance of her facade. However, that tertiary source is relatively unimportant in the scheme of things, and she's not going to make any effort to keep it under control repeatedly, to keep drawing on it for the purpose of the prime aims. Will Smith, by contrast, is that chief provider. The way to look at it is to consider that the electricity that comes into your house comes from a variety of sources. It might be that a little bit of it comes from solar panels, a little bit of it comes from a wind turbine, a little bit of it comes from the burning of refuse, which turns a turbine, which enables the production of electricity. And then the bulk of your electricity comes from a nuclear reactor somewhere. If your wind turbine stops turning, the provision of your electricity to your house dips, but it's not going to cause you a major problem because all of the other providers are keeping your fridge going, your television on, the lights on, the heating, if you use electricity to heat it, etc. Keep all of that going, it's not a problem. But if that nuclear reactor conks out, providing, say, 80, 90% of the electricity, then your fridge might go off, your TV doesn't work, most of the lights aren't working, the heating dips. And therefore that creates a significant problem for you. Therefore, Will Smith, being the most important aspect of the fuel matrix, if she were to lose control of him, that causes significant problems for her. Of course, she might disengage from him, and in so doing, that's her choice, and she would have a replacement ordinarily lined up. But that's a separate topic. The point is to remember, Will Smith is the most important aspect of her fuel matrix. It's a little bit like you would look after a particularly important possession far more than something that is less meaningful to you. So, for example, you ensure that you look after your money because that's hugely important, but you're not particularly bothered about that old pair of slippers. She must keep him under control, and she does so through a range of manipulations. And narcissists use lots and lots of different types of manipulations geared towards the type of narcissist that the person is. And you can access through my extensive catalogue of videos lots of different types of manipulations to understand more about them. So, for instance, what she does is she triangulates him with other men, whereby, for instance, she still worships Tupac Shakur. And Smith has admitted in his own biography that he is hugely jealous of her in terms of the way that the relationship she had with Tupac and the fact that she evidently will still mention him. And her narcissism will compel her repeatedly to compare Smith with Tupac. So she will often say, that's not the kind of thing Tupac would have done, or Tupac would never have spoken to me like that, in order to then malignly triangulate Smith to provoke him, to cause a reaction, to bring him under control and cause him to provide fuel. She will use pity plays in order to cause him to want to protect her. And you will learn further in this, his desire to protect and to save is a fundamental part of how she is able to maintain this hold over him. She will, of course, use sex as a means of keeping him under control. The cadre of narcissist that she is, which you can learn about in the video, supports that she was somebody that will use sex in that manner. Narcissists will regularly use sex in different forms in order to assert control, because sex is a major weapon of seduction. And if you'd like to understand more about that, you really ought to access my excellent book, Sex and the Narcissist. It'll have your jaw on the floor, as well as possibly your underwear. She will belittle him. She will invalidate him. She will insult him. She will give him silent treatments. There's a possibility of physical violence, although that doesn't seem to be prevalent. She'll be argumentative with him. She will engage in a repeated array of behaviours which are intrinsically and unconsciously designed to maintain that control over him by virtue of her narcissism. She may exhibit false compassion for him. She may future fake him. She will use guilt against him. She'll project, blame shift, use word salads. We've seen examples of the nonsense that she spouts, a season of healing, etc. She will revise history in order to confuse. She'll be argumentative. She'll feign misunderstanding. She'll deflect. She'll falsely accuse him of things. She will withdraw sex from him. She'll cross-examine him about the things that he's done. These and other manipulations will be used against him. But one of the most fundamental ones that she will use in order to continue this hold over him, in order to assert control, is the use of vulnerability against the victim. We, either unconsciously or aware, in a calculated fashion where you're dealing with an aware narcissist, will seek out your vulnerabilities. Whether it's the fact that you have a fear of abandonment, whether it's the fact that you're scared of the dark, or snakes, or the fact that watching Tom Cruise makes your skin crawl. Maybe the fact that you've been raped, that you've been abused at some point yourself. The fact that you've witnessed domestic violence as a child. These things are logged and stored consciously or unconsciously by the narcissist to then use against you, and it will be done time and time again. We know from his own recollections that Smith witnessed repeated domestic violence against his mother as a child, and that he felt a huge sense of helplessness, that he wasn't able to ride to her defence, and it's something that he always swore that he would do. This saviour aspect of him as the White Knight is something that's very much embodied in his psyche and forms part of who he is as an empath. He wants to ride into battle to save people, and who would he want to save most of all? The person that he loves. She will use that against him repeatedly, and not only in terms of being saved herself, but moreover using the vulnerability that he has to the witnessing helplessness. So in circumstances where there is an injustice, particularly meted out as against her, she will effectively be signalling to him, "You couldn't save your mum. Are you going to let me to be the second woman that you can't save?" And that will strike at the very core of Smith's being, galvanizing him and motivating him to act in an appropriate fashion. It might be through the demonstration of his empathic traits, exhibiting compassion, care, or it could be through the manifestation of narcissistic traits such as anger. We witness this with the hitting of Chris Rock. This vulnerability that Smith has will be used against him repeatedly by Jada Pinkett Smith. Why? She has no emotional empathy for him. She simply does not care to use that vulnerability against him. That wound, if you will, that he suffered, she will put her fingers in, jab them in and out, and then pour salt on the wound thereafter. She does not care. She makes it seem as if she cares by perhaps often saying, "I realise that must have been awful for you, and I understand why you wish to protect people. You're great," and will flatter him. So she will also benignly triangulate him with that desire. She will also explain how she recognises that this causes him problems, and that she's there for him, exhibiting false compassion. A route similar to that undertaken by Harry's wife with regard to Harry, in respect to the vulnerability that he has following the loss of his mother, Diana, Princess of Wales. There will be a range of manipulations that she will use against him, but she must keep hold of him, because her narcissism dictates it as such, because he's such an important part of the fuel matrix. And she will swap him out when it suits her, but should he try to escape, she'll issue preventative hoovers to draw him back in. If he were to try and leave the relationship, she would unleash the initial Grand Hoover, as explained in my book, No Contact, to try and keep him in place. She determines if he can go, not him. And the hold she has over him, from her perspective, is driven by her unconscious narcissism and the need to keep him in place to satisfy the provision of the prime aims, because he's the most important provider of them. And in order to achieve that, she will repeatedly unconsciously manipulate him. And one of the chief manipulations that she will use against him is this concept of the use of a vulnerability that he has against him, namely what he witnessed with regard to the treatment of his mother by his father. However, this is only half the story. The other aspect as to why she has such a hold over him comes from Smith himself. He is an empath. If he were a narcissist, we would see a far more tempestuous relationship between these individuals. Yes, there have been occasions where he's pleaded his case, and they've argued. He is not such a simp to roll over in that regard. He will stand his ground from time to time as his strong narcissistic traits come to the fore. But a lot of the time, he'll be the one arguing to try and smooth things over, to placate them, to appease her, to make everything all right, because as he acknowledges, he did that with his father, keep him on side, keep him laughing, so that he wouldn't lash out and harm his siblings or his mother. It's the same with her. He will be trying to always do the right thing for her, try to appease her, try to placate her, organise fantastic birthdays, try and work out what she always wants, running around second-guessing, almost exhausting himself in the pursuit of that supposed happiness. If he were a narcissist, there would be far too many clashes, and the relationship would be far more on and off, on and off, on and off. Quite simply, the narcissist that she is, and that he could potentially be, would collide so often that it would be tempestuous. There would not be a harnessing, as can happen with some narcissists, witness Bill and Hillary Clinton. If he were a normal, he would have been long gone. Quite possibly as a narcissist he would have departed and thought, fuck that shit, I'm out of here. But he probably would have kept hoovering her, and thus there would be this back and forth a lot of the time. As a normal, he would have walked far sooner. I ain't got time for this, and would have walked away from it. Why? Because he wouldn't have the addiction to the narcissist, which he, as an empath, he has. His addiction was formed in his childhood. Essentially, he became an empathic person, which means he wants to flex his empathy, but more importantly, he has been imprinted. A narcissist in his home, his father, has caused him to feel, at an unconscious level, that narcissism is home to him, and therefore he unconsciously seeks the storm that he experienced as a child as an adult, and therefore he is inextricably drawn to narcissists, and of course, namely his wife. The tempestuous behaviour that she exhibits is a reminder of what he experienced, yet he can't help but find himself drawn to it, and then, of course, rather than realising what she is and thinking, this is no good for me, I should leave, he wants to solve it. Why? His addiction wants to be fed. His addiction wants to be fed, and it's fed by him continuing to involve himself with her in various shapes and forms, spending time with her, talking to her, doing things for her, and so forth. In order to compel him to do this, he experiences something called emotional thinking, which is basically not being hysterical, but making decisions in the absence of logic. Emotional thinking poses a triple threat. It creates flawed logic. It makes the victim think they're doing something sensible when they're not. For instance, continuing to plead with her to see his side of the argument. Fruitless. He's dealing with a narcissist. It causes the corruption of traits. So, for instance, it will corrupt his sense of pride to say, I'm not going to walk away from this, I'm going to make this work. I'm not stopping until we've sorted out our differences. It will corrupt his narcissistic trait of anger to cause him perhaps to unleash that anger elsewhere in order to defend her, something we've witnessed. It will corrupt his trait of defiance in order to cause him to show to the world, we are a team, we are a unit. I don't care for the rumours that you say that we're swingers, bisexual, that our relationship is falling apart. Go fuck yourselves, I'm sticking with her. It will corrupt his empathic traits, such as his desire to heal and fix. Rather than look at it and think, this is unfixable, I'm dealing with a narcissist, he will be duped by his own emotional thinking to cause him to believe that he can solve the problems that exist in their relationship, and he continues to self-flagellate as he blames himself for the failings and thinks, well, I could do better. What was it that I caused her to be upset? I, for instance, insisted that she come and live on this ranch, and that made her unhappy. No, it wasn't your insistence that she lived upon the ranch that made her unhappy. It was the fact that had offended her sense of control, and her narcissism caused her to portray unhappiness, which you then believed was your fault, because as an empathic person, you invariably blame yourself. It will corrupt his trait of compassion to cause him to keep looking after her, to trying to do the right thing for her. It will corrupt his truth-seeker trait, so he always wants to get to the bottom of why there's a problem, to find out why she says what she says, to get her to understand the truth of his position. But of course, she simply isn't interested. It will corrupt his empathic trait of justice to cause him to get the right outcome. Where somebody does something against her, he wants to seek that justice and administer it as the white knight that he is, which fits with his desire to placate, to solve. He is that people pleaser. It also, his emotional thinking, creates feelings with him. Frustration, desire, anger, sadness, which then motivates him to continue to be involved with her. It might make him angry, so he argues with her. It makes him sad, so that he pleads with her not to keep hurting him. It causes frustration, so he goes to her to express his frustration. It creates desire and corrupts his love, so that he wants to pour more towards her. He has become a slave to her as a consequence of his addiction, but he doesn't realise this. His addiction is the enemy within, and it keeps him in place so that it is fed to the detriment of Smith. It cons him into believing him that this is a good relationship for him, that She's an amazing woman, and yes, they are experiencing this journey as they work out what their relationship is. You should never have to work out what your relationship is. If you have to question it, there's something wrong. But he believes that's part of the rich tapestry of life, a combination of his own emotional thinking and the duping that his wife goes in with regard to her high-handed, arrogant treatment of him, as we've witnessed in the way that she talks to him in the Red Table Talk. So the hold that she has over Will Smith isn't down to one item, that there is something in a jewelled casket hidden away at El Casa Smith that she can use against him, but it is a combination of two things. She is a narcissist, and she must control him as the intimate partner primary source, and he, as an empathic victim, has an addiction to the narcissist, which causes him to remain in situ rather than applying the principle of go-so, of getting out and staying out. And this is why she has a hold over him. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.